appreciate that introduction. And Wayne, I guess you decided not to introduce me because I've known Wayne forever, as well as Leela Kelp forever. So if y'all want any of the dirt on either one of them, just come talk.
Goes both ways.
That's right. Yeah, the University of Alabama and our office and me have been members of the Alabama Forest Owners Association 20 plus years. But I had to admit, this is the first time I've been to one of the annual meetings. And I tell you what, this is good. I mean, not necessarily my talk or anything, but most of your topics have been right on good topics and everything. And I know that this is a special meeting for me because most of the forestry meetings I attend as a registered forester and doing continuing ed, I have to go to Auburn. So this meeting is very different for me because I didn't have to slip into town today, and I won't have to slip out of town to this meeting. So I do welcome y'all to the Hotel Capstone, when you called it the Sheraton, that was a long time ago, and to the University of Alabama campus, and I hope you enjoy your stay. I usually tell folks who come see us and do business with our office, I can fix your parking ticket, but don't ask me about football tickets. I'd like to begin, if you notice from the agenda you have, my title slide has 4 little letters that's different, and that is the NOAA aerial imagery that was taken following the storms of last year. And I'm going to fly through this pretty quickly because I didn't realize, I was watching all the speakers today, how quickly 20 minutes goes by. So I don't know whether I get this 30 or 45 minutes in. So with that said, here we go.
Bottom left.
Hey. Okay, I'm going to go by those statistics rather quickly. I don't want to preach to the choir. Earlier speaker talked about preaching. But I do want to just say a couple things. 2011 was the 4th most deadliest year of tornadoes on record. April of last year was the most deadliest month in that year. And so, given those two facts, if you look at this graphic image of 4 days in April, we got to change. We can't go back.
Take it back. Can you go back?
Should have a back button on there. Maybe the second one up on the left.
No, so I had to, there we go. This is representative of 4 days, April 24th to 29th. You guys way back here in the back, I'll just have to tell you what it is. But this does show all the tornado tracks that happened at that particular time. So if it was the deadliest year, the 4th deadliest year, the deadliest month, you can see we here in Alabama suffered more in those outbreaks than really any other state. Now, let me ask you a question. Many of you here were probably affected by many of these storms. Can you remember what you did initially right after all these storms and hours and days after that? For most of us, it was to make sure everybody's okay and this sort of thing. But eventually, as forest owners, we began to go, oh my goodness, how much damage do I have? And we went into a damage assessment. In the days following the tornado here past through Tuscaloosa, my first 3 or 4 days are spent primarily here on campus helping out as I could. But if you'll just let me share some of the things that I experienced to kind of create what I want to point out in this talk. We lost our electricity that morning at 5:30, so it began my downward spin of not having information. My whole talk is about it having the right information at the right time. As I sat in my safe room, listening to a battery-powered radio to one of the local weather forecasters, and I do this with every tornado outbreak because the next day I've got to go see what, and I'm charting the tracks and the information so I'll know where to go look. I finally threw up my notebook and watched see what's wrong, and I said, there's too much. I can't keep up with it. So I had begun to lose information, and I was overwhelmed. Well, as I stood in line the next morning at McDonald's buying my wife coffee, because she has to have her coffee the next morning, I was in line, and it was an uneerily quiet time in McDonald's as people stood in line because the television screens were showing what had actually taken place. Previous to that night, after we didn't have electricity, we knew the storm was heavy, I sat and listened to a scanner, listening to the police here in Tuscaloosa and how it was a sense of chaos. So these next 2 or 3 days after the storm, for me as the Emergencies forester, I was in an information deficit, and really I was finding problems. It wasn't until Sunday when I was able to return to my office and we finally got electricity that Tuscaloosa News ran a newspaper article using some of these images. It was a before and after image of photographs of Tuscaloosa. And it had a link. Now, all these websites that I'm referencing, I'll get Lee, probably put them up on the website or somewhere, but I've got those. So, but there was a link to a website, and it had a further link, but it was links to aerial photography that had been taken of not only Tuscaloosa, but the entire storm tracks in Alabama. Now, let me get on my soapbox for just a minute, because this is really kind of amazing to me. The date of this is April 30th. Storm went through here April 27th. Now, NOAA, within a matter of a couple of days, had flown the Tuscaloosa-Birmingham storm track, had processed that imagery, and had put it online. Now, within a space of a week, they had flown all the major storm tracks in Alabama, processed that imagery, and it was there for the use. So, as hard as it was to comprehend the damages that were done in this state, I find that almost as hard to believe that our government was that proactive, that fast, to provide us a tool that we could use. Using the link that we found there, you know, I dropped this thing earlier up here at lunch, and I think it's getting back to me. Getting back at me. There we go. Too fast. There we go. Carries you to this website. This website is still up. These images are still online. Now, they are a year old, and I'll speak how you might be able to use them. You might say, I wasn't affected by the storms. Well, for those of you that were, or within a vicinity, this is probably of a lot of importance. I'm going to begin the DIY, or how to use this particular information. Go to this website, and you can see these red lines. Those are tiles. And if you enlarge to an area of interest, if you click on one of those tiles, it'll bring up this little menu item. It'll give you two choices. You can go to a low resolution image, or you can go to a high resolution image. The low resolution image is a thumbnail. It will show up on the computer screen, and that's about all. You can look at it, that's about all you can do. With a high resolution, there are some scanning or some zooming capabilities, and so if you want to use this, get with John Gilbert, who was giving the online mapping presentation. He's got some information about viewers that a layperson can use on their computer to properly utilize this imagery. Now, I will caution you, some of these images are quite large and take a while to load on a home computer. Now, this is an example of a high resolution slide. I promise you, back here in the back, it just looks like a black bird. But if you get these images on your computer screen, they are really awesome. They were flown at 5,000 feet, and the pixel size, for those of you may be wondering, is 10 inches. This is better than anything you can really afford to buy. Now, For the rest of these images, I'm going to use this map to kind of orient you where you're going to be seeing. You see the track marked in purple. The red lines are university lands. We're talking about Jefferson County, west of Bessemer. And so with that, I'll show you how, if I can ever get this right, how we use these slides, or these images. Most of these next few slides that you'll see, we actually used as we informed the Board of Trustees on the damages that were wrought on the university lands immediately following that. So we began our damage assessments by placing an overlay of our lands onto the images, and we were able to calculate the acreage involved using our inventory. We were able to come up with a cost figure, and we did that in about 7 to 10 days after the storm. So given that, we began to go to the field and start doing some work. But I wanted to show you a resolution. Again, you may not be able to see this, and I don't have a pointer, but this is that same image, and I've zoomed into the resolution. You can see there's vehicles on the roads, and on a computer screen, you can actually see individual trees. So without going to the field, we were able to, using this imagery, we were able to almost probably 80% of the damage that we'd had scattered through West Alabama. We were able to map that, calculate the acres, and come up with what had happened. Now, feel like I'm probably preaching to the choir. Some of y'all may have had scenes just like this on your property. And I sympathize with you, because no amount of looking at aerial images in the office prepared me for what I would find when I did get to the field. You're actually looking the far ridge. That's 3/4 of a mile of down trees. This is one I'd been keeping in my back pockets, and when timber prices came back, man, I was going to say, well, Mother Nature beat me to it. As I stood there that day, I made a comment that came back to haunt me. Well, it can't get any worse than this. And I've already kind of shown what happened. It did get worse. Wayne, I shouldn't have dropped this, but it works. Go to the next slide, one. There we go. It got worse. Next slide, one. Trying to catch up on the notes. On June 7th, wildfire started right there at the yellow dot. Burned 10 days, 3,000 acres. And so it did get worse. And these same images we were able to use with the forestry committee. I don't know when Casey's still here, but we were able to use these photographs with the Alabama Forestry Commission crews there to help them put this fire out. And I was the one that said it couldn't get worse. Next slide, please. Next one. Next one. Go back. Well, it got worse. Or did it? You know, I was always taught, look for the good in everything. And so with the next slide, I took this slide last week. And it's hard to tell, but we did plant the track. We did not salvage a single tree off of this track. We did plant it, and we're still, at this point, about 80% free. The seedlings are about 80% free. The other 20% is covered by poke. And my mom, 91-year-old mama, knew I had 350 acres of poke growing, I'd be out there with plenty of garbage sacks picked up. Go to the next one, Will. So this is one source that's available. It's a year old, but it's still, if you have lands in that area, two things. Encourage you, one, they could possibly be used in insurance or whatever, but the other big point I want to stress to you, if you're doing any kind of burning around any of these storm tracks, you better be very, very sure of your control methods and where they're located. Because this storm, 30 some odd years in the woods, this fire burned like none I'd ever seen before because of the fuel of it. And it'll get worse and worse as time goes by for a while. I want to leave you, again, these, I'll make sure Lee puts these up. This is a listing of the emergency response imagery. You see, if you can read this, most of these are hurricane imagery. It does have Joplin, Missouri, and it does have Tuscaloosa imagery on it. So it's fascinating to look at this, and these are our tax dollars. But folks, I can't say enough about NOAA providing us another tool in the management of our properties. Personal note, I first used this imagery in 2005 to assure my wife, her sister, who lived in Goshen, Mississippi, right at the foot of the bridge, that her house was okay, so she was okay. So, anyway, last slide. February the 21st of this year, NOAA and the University of Alabama announced that NOAA is going to be building the water research center for the nation here on our campus. If any of y'all were at the oil and gas tour, it's just another block or so up from there, and it's under construction as we speak. So the university and NOAA are going to have a continuing deeper relationship. Any questions?